We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good afternoon, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Rafe. A live Q&A for an hour. It doesn't have to be about football, it can be about anything, within reason, of course. And we will, of course, be on till about 4 o'clock. Newcastle United in Carabao Cup semi-final action tonight. The first leg, of course, against Manchester City. For those of you who can't go to the game, it is live on ITV, terrestrial television, which is great news. So, not so great news. The injury news coming out of Newcastle United today. And that is, unfortunately, that Tino Livramento is out for 8 weeks. 8 weeks he's missing. Of the and that's very disappointing for us. It's it means from our perspective that we are massively stretched at the back, and that's a big worry for everybody, at the club, fans and the people at the club alike. So let's hope that Newcastle do go into the transfer window and look to buy. And Tom's in with that question right at the start. Do you think we'll be active in the transfer window with injuries happening? Tom, as I have a drink of my coffee, we've got to be, mate. We have got to be. We've got to bring somebody in. If we don't bring somebody in, we are literally rolling the dice, rolling the barrel of a gun in a game of Russian roulette with our season. That's what we're doing. It's not advisable. It really isn't. We're struggling without a centre forward cover. That's the problem. We are really struggling without cover up front. That can't be forgotten either. We can't let Asula go when he's fit, because we need that backup. We could probably get across the line with our season with Voltemada, Wissa and Asula, but not without Tino Livramento. Dan Burn still not fit. Kraft nowhere near fit. Lascelles on his way out. Botman nowhere near the Rolls Royce that everyone described him as when he first came to the club. Fabian Shaw out as well. We are really struggling at the back, and lack of confidence in the youngsters from the gaffer. So it's not looking good. So yes, Tom, we do need to spend money. John Askew, I've got an email off John as well and off Stephen Kennedy. There's a crazy number of games at the minute. How best can we, or particularly Eddie, cope? Game by game, John. Game by game. And as we know, injuries will continue to affect this team, and suspensions as well. We need a bit of Lady Luck, John. That's what we need. We need a bit of help from Lady Luck. In relation to the question on infrastructure, it was also said players, some were promised, things haven't come to fruition. Is this a worry? I'm not sure what you mean, Gary. Are we talking about what Isaac said, where he didn't get what he wanted in relation to the question on infrastructure? It was also said players, some were promised things that haven't come to fruition. All right, okay, infrastructure. You're talking about the ground and the training ground. I mean, I don't believe really that a player's going to come and have a look, isn't he? He's going to weigh his options up. He's going to look at what he can get. He's going to look at what he can get financially. Look to see whether he's got a route into the first team and if he's got if he's got any competition. You know, as long as it's not Benwell getting into bins with ice in a paddling pool, you know, are they really that bothered about the training facilities? Obviously, it's nice to have, you know, top of the scale, but some of the players we've signed are coming from countries where I'm sure we've got better training facilities. I don't believe that's a huge part. You're telling somebody they're getting paid 250 grand a week, but the training ground's not up to scratch. You know, I'm sure they'll quite happily take 250 grand a week and be playing in a team that's got a chance of winning something each season. Man United, the ground's a mess. What's the training facilities like? I don't know, but I mean, if there's no money getting put in at all, I don't think that plays a huge part. It might do. I just hope Newcastle learn the lesson. Don't promise things you can't deliver. If they are promising players X, Y, and Z, don't do it unless it's a guarantee. I know nothing in life's guaranteed, but don't make promises you cannot keep. Should we feel hard done by when we're trying to do our best? But tonight's opponents have a squad that's probably light years ahead of ourselves, yet we've got more money. Oh, that's it. I mean, we have got more money if PIF were just running Newcastle United. But I've got out of this kind of richest club in the world thing very quickly. I've never described us as the richest club in the world. If you're talking about PIF's finance, of course, they own us. But from our perspective, they have other fish to fry. They've got so many other businesses that take, not priority, but take money from PIF. So we're just part of a portfolio, John. That's what we are. It's better than being part of Mike Ashley's portfolio, but we're just a portfolio. And I'm still pleased that we won the Carabao Cup in the way that we did, up against it. Nobody could say that we bought our way at the Carabao Cup. It's the one thing that we've not been accused of by any other football fan. Oh, well, you bought that. We didn't. We won it the hard way. And we won it the hard way in the draw as well, with Arsenal in the semis and Liverpool in the final. So, you know what, John? What will be, will be. I'm still confident we'll win something this season and still confident that we'll finish fifth. So, I haven't changed. That was what I said at the start of the season. Finish fifth place and win the FA Cup. So, let's see where we're at in May. Roll on tonight's game, says Darren. I'm thinking 2-1 again. It'd be nice if we can keep a clean sheet. Keeping a clean sheet's imperative, but it's going to be so difficult against these. I know I've gone 2-0 in my prediction, but I'm hedging more towards a Penman tonight and saying 3-1, which is still a 2-goal margin. I think taking a 2-goal margin to Man City gives us that fighting chance. It really does. The way the defence is playing at the moment and the way that, the way that we concede goals, it would be, I think predicting a clean sheet is brave. But yeah, I think we could still go down there with a 2-goal lead. I think that would be great. Can't believe one of our former players has joined the Man U coaching staff today, Jonathan Woodgate. But he was with Carrick at Borough, wasn't he? So it shouldn't really be a surprise, that, Darren. Let's face it. I reckon it'll be Pope and goal. What do you think? It's semi-finals. Ramsdale played 120 minutes in the penalties shootout at the weekend. It's an easy call for how to make. And it'll be all about squad rotation, etc. But I'd be very surprised if Ramsdale was in goal tonight. My team tonight is Ramsdale in goal. I think he'll go 4-3-3. Sorry. So I think he will go. You see, I think I said Trippier in there previously, but having played the extra time now, I think he'll go Miley right back. He'll go with Chow and Botman centre halves, and he'll go with Hall at left back. He'll go with Tonali, Gomares, and Joe Linton is the three. He'll play Gordon on the left. He'll play Barnes on the right, and he'll play Wissa up front. That's what I think. You were expecting the worst from Faces when he left the pitch. I think he definitely did about Toho. Oh, yeah, that's about Tino. Yeah, sad news that Tino. Yeah, missing for 8 weeks now. Unbelievable. Happy recent form has picked up, says Gawley. Despite us not making it easy for ourselves, I'm concerned around how the club is run. We need sponsors, training ground, squad, management signings, and little's occurring. Yeah, I'm not concerned. I'm more frustrated. I think maybe that's just one and the same, but I am frustrated, Gawley, that we haven't got those things in. And I guess on this show, we keep pointing to the people in those kind of positions like Silverstone and Eels in the past. And, we say this one and that one. But at the end of the day, PIF own the club. And, these people are getting moved on. Well, they're getting moved on for a reason. So, yeah, is it because they're not doing the job and they're not doing what they're asked to do? Are these people who are put in these positions hitting the proverbial brick wall because people don't want to deal with Saudi? I just don't know. I don't know, but it is disappointing that we haven't brought sponsors in a greater scale. I mean, our commercial revenue is huge now compared to the way it was 4 years ago. Maybe we just have to learn to walk before we can run. That's it, really. Who else do you think will sign a new contract at the club? I mean, you want Tino to sign a contract. You need to tie Lewis Hall down on a contract. You really want Lewis Miley, to extend. You need to look after your key players. That's what you need to do. I wouldn't want to make a prediction who will. I'm very disappointed, really, that that we didn't manage to stand up to Liverpool in the summer and keep Isak. And I think, unfortunately, Tom, that sets the precedence for what happens over the next few years. I do expect to get tested for Tino. I do expect it to get tested for Tonali. And on this season's, transfer window activity, I think if a right offer comes in for any of these players, I think they go. I think it's as simple as that. And Newcastle aren't a selling club, but because of the ongoing financial pressure that we have on us, even though we've sold our striker for a vast amount of money in the summer, I always feel that we will be tested, and I think that's unfortunately where we are at the minute because of the rules. We need at least two players bringing in this window. I would agree. I would we still need a striker, and we need now the defender. And according to Craig Hope yesterday, I did listen to his little podcast before after the press conference. He seemed to suggest that we are looking for a right-sided centre half. So that was his understanding yesterday as well. Yeah, I mean, he could end up at the Etihad. All the noises were about Bruno. Now it's about Tino, John, going there. So the one good thing is that Bruno didn't go. So maybe that will be the case. Arsenal are now chasing Tino, this according to some reports. Interesting. Another article this morning, Steve mentions Eddie Howe to England after the World Cup when current manager finishes and heads to Man U. A BS article. I mean, from our perspective, Roger, anything can happen. And, Eddie may feel as if, it is time to get out. I mean, he's gone on record as saying he didn't have the interview with England. That kind of management doesn't suit him. He prefers day to day. I don't know what more Eddie can say about it, really. And papers will be papers. They will speculate and speculate and speculate. Tuchel may well win the World Cup and then get asked to stay on. and battle for the European Championships. But I don't know about how to England. I do feel that he would enjoy staying at Newcastle, but it's just whether Newcastle would be happy to keep him. I think Man U are waiting on Luis Enrique, who's leaving PSG this summer, whose contract is up interesting. It'll be irresponsible, says Tim, on behalf of the ownership to expect the depleted squad to be successful till the end of the season, competing on all levels. Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. It's impossible for Newcastle to sustain, a run in all competitions. With that, I think I've heard some, say that getting past the Bournemouth game and getting into the next round of the cup was vital, because by the end of January, start of February, that might be all we've got to play for, along with a place in Europe. You've got to look at it in a positive light here. Newcastle could get to the Carabao Cup final. Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? Newcastle have got the same chance as Man City have. We aren't a poor relation to Man City anymore. So for me, I do feel that should be the main focus. There's a gap between the games as well. If Newcastle get a 2-0 lead or a 3-1 lead, which is possible, that gap, can give you time. Players will be coming back. Hopefully we won't lose any more players, and we could be in a better position by the time we play Man City at their ground. But it's going to take a technical masterclass. But yeah, the owners do need to finance, and according to Craig Hope, who does have his ear to the ground and seems to get correct information, he seems to feel that Newcastle will make some signing. Are you frustrated we haven't got more points in the league? It's not that strong a league this season, is it? I'm not surprised at all, mate, because we're all in the same boat. With the exception of Man City and Arsenal, we're all in the same boat. Look at Sunderland. They've gone on a great run. We're now 2 points above them. It's only 2 weeks ago we were saying Sunderland were 5 or 6 points above us, and that's how tight the league is. So, of course, you're disappointed, but I'm not surprised. Anybody can beat anybody, and if you let your standards drop, that is it. Looks like Miley's out right back for the foreseeable. Tino out for 8 weeks. Yeah, Mark, I mentioned that at the start of the show. And I'm not too disappointed about that. I think that I'm disappointed that Tino's out, of course, but Miley can do a job there. We've just got to hope that Miley doesn't get injured, or we lose Chow, or we lose Botman. I'm not Botman's biggest fan, and I've said this countless times on here now. He's not the Rolls Royce that everybody called him, months ago, before those injuries. He's very slow compared to the way that I remember him first starting off, but he signed a new contract, and let's hope he stays fit. Is the Tino situation linked to his transfer out of our club this summer? I doubt it, John. He's injured, and we saw the injury happen. So I don't believe that. I don't believe that situation. I've seen Andrew Murdy's reply to that as well. I'm not sure if that's the way you meant it. The season could go belly up, but Eddie's coping with various squad restrictions. I think he's still got credit in the bank. Yeah, he's got credit in the bank, John. 100%. He's got credit in the bank, but everything can change. Anything can change, and everything can change in football. That's what happens. I don't see another manager. People are crying out for this name and that name, and I just don't see a big name manager coming and working under these kind of financial restrictions that Eddie's had to. Unai Emery wants to spend money. He's working under restrictions, but he's still been able to go out and spend money. Aston Villa seem to be in a better financial position than we are. It's so frustrating. But yeah, the season could go belly up, but at the moment, the quadruple's still on. That was tongue-in-cheek. I think we'll play a 5-4-1 out of possession. Didn't we do that against Arsenal in last year's semi? Yeah, we could do. Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how things change. It is going to see how things change. Andrew says anyone looking at Tino would look twice given his injury record. I can't see him leaving. Yeah, it's just paper talk at the moment. It really is just paper talk, Andrew. That's it. And that's, that's it. There's no confirmation, no denial. But we do know that if the price is right, Newcastle are always willing to sell. And that's disappointing. Common denominator, well, a change of form is Big Joe's improvement. We need his dominance in midfield. Yeah, that is correct, I think. He's aggression. He's, his commitment to the cause, and it's a definitely a game changer in the midfield. And we hadn't seen Joe Linton play like that since the cup final. So to see him come back in recent weeks like the old Joe Linton has been a blessing. And he's notching a couple of goals as well, Tim. So I would agree with you. Mark Irwin says, I've given up getting upset about things I've got no effect on, so I just enjoy it. After all, it's the best it's ever been. Mark, that's a great philosophy to have. The only thing that I was annoyed about with, with a cup game, for example, was just how bloody cold it was. It's a sign of getting old, Mark. And the fact that, we ended up in extra time and penalties was a bloody nightmare. And I had about 4 layers on, Mark. So, that was probably the one thing I was most annoyed about at the weekend. Isaac's situation made us look weak. Yeah, I agree, Darren. I agree. And not to repeat Isaac's situation and the panic buying after missing out on our main target due to the boardroom level mess. Yeah. I do think that, we know that, Voldemort wasn't first, second, or third choice. And we've spent a hell of a lot of money on somebody who ultimately doesn't really fit our style of play. And in fact, somebody who has scored goals and has given us some wonderful moments to remember this season, but ultimately doesn't fit our pattern of play. And we've spent from August to January trying to find a way of playing with him, and the wingers to start being effective and the midfielders to start being effective. We're getting there slowly but surely. That's the one thing. We are now getting there, Darren. And I think that's a blessing in disguise, really, that we've finally got that kind of rhythm back. And the midfielders are starting to bomb on. We're getting goals across the pitch now. I think that's a positive. I think the fact that by the end of the season, we'll probably have 4 or 5 players who are all in double figures. And that's very rare that happens. But the much maligned midfield and wingers who we were all probably questioning in the early part of the season, saying they weren't doing their job, there's a few of them stepping up to the mark now. Barnes, top scorer. Gordon, performance-wise, great going forward, terrible going back, and hasn't scored a goal from open play. He's hedging towards 30 games now. But we've got players there who are very, very capable of, hitting that double figures mark, so it's good. Lewis Hall and Miley more important for me over Tino. Do I want him to stay Hall's ceiling? I think it's greater. Tino and I worry about Tino's left leg and repeated injuries. Yeah, I think we all worry about that. But his injuries, his hamstring, it was a freak accident for Tino. So it wasn't his knee, it was his hamstring this time. So that's the problem as well, I guess. Injuries to players can happen at any time. And, it's how you cope with it. That's the whole point of having a really good squad. For me, the Botman contract news is not as exciting as it would have been previously. Hasn't been the same player since the injury. Hoping he gets back to his best was the quickest, but has lost the pace mark. Exactly what I said before. I didn't get excited about Botman signing. In fact, I was wondering whether they put him on an extra contract so that they get more money for him if they sell him in the summer. But yeah, I guess we should be happy. Only time will tell. I hope that 120 minutes plus hasn't affected him massively, and that he gets a good performance tonight. Scalvini's a right-sided centre back. Yeah, that's what he was basically alluding to. We didn't mention any names. Didn't have any names. Craig Hope. It's crazy to buy Scalvini. He's got more injuries than I've had hot dinners. Talk of a loan as well. There was talk of the loan market could be a possibility. He's only played 6 games this season and 2 goals since he's returned from his current injury. So there you go. It's a bit of an update on somebody potentially Newcastle have been linked with. If we keep Tino, Hall and Miley, the future could be very bright to get the contracts extended. I would agree. Craig Hope said we are actively trying to sign a right-sided centre-half. I wish people would calm down, assuming we won't buy anyone. I mean, Andrew, it's just people are frustrated, and I guess the summer wasn't the greatest transfer window. You know, you can only ever reflect on it at the end of a season, and you know you have to give players more than a few games or half a season. So we can look at the end of the season and we can assess Alanga, we can assess Ramsdale and Ramsey, we can assess Wisser and Walter, and we can give an honest opinion then. But as far as a live opinion is concerned about what these players have done so far, you'd have to say that Baltimore, despite concerns, has been relatively successful. Wisser is still gaining fitness, but has got off to a decent start. Ramsey is a tidy footballer, but there's a hell of a lot more to come. No goals or assists. Alanga failed to deliver, and Ramsdale has, he's done the job that you would expect a number two to do. He's stepped in and done his best, but he's not worth spending any more money on, for me, is my honest assessment on him. So for me, transfer window has probably been, since the takeover, the worst that we've had. That would be my assessment now, but I will reassess that at the end of the season. Would Botman be playing so much of injuries weren't a factor? No, of course he wouldn't. I think Dan Burn would be in the starting lineup as centre half, and Fabian Shaw would be probably rotated with Malik Chow. I think that's the way it would work, because Dan Burn is clearly, Howe's favourite and trusted member of the squad, and I think that would be how it would work. I think Chow would probably rotate at this moment in time, and I think Botman would probably get back in if there was an injury to Burn. I think that's the way it would work. 35 million isn't much these days, I would agree. It's not what you do with the demand of games at the moment. Miley will manage the physical demand. Yeah, of course he will. I think he's getting better and better and better. And I genuinely think that Miley will he's got past that kind of youngster stage. He's now, he's now a senior member of the squad, and I just think that he will be affected by injuries like anybody else. Hopefully, he won't get many, but he's not afraid to put his foot in, which is always good. I've seen one or two players pulling out of challenges, and that's how you get injured. Willock, Gordon in particular stand to mind of, I'm sure Gordon subliminally is thinking of the World Cup and worried in case he gets injured, long-term injury for that. Willock, I don't understand it. Maybe it's the fact that he's been injured a couple of times and just that's where the worry is. But that's just my opinion. Adam P is linking us with Gahey and Scalvini, and not that I think he's the oracle. I mean, I would love to sign Gahey, and I guess Eddie Howe would love to sign Gahey, but he's got so many options on the table now that I would say that Gahey's probably, if not bound for Man City or Liverpool, will certainly be considering a move to somewhere like Bayern Munich. And why wouldn't he? He's got the world at his feet. He's held his head up high, and he's been a very respectful to the club that he's at in Crystal Palace. So fair play to him. He deserves success, Gahey. Although I'm not a huge Gahey fan, fair play to him for what he's done in the way that he's conducted himself whilst he's been in the spotlight and as far as speculation's concerned about moving. Thanks to Rob, he has sent in his musical interlude, so I'm going to have a quick ad break, and as Tuesdays usually talk of the tune, we will play Rob's music review after the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And a thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. UK Coach Holidays established 2020. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2026 tours, 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Website www.unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Big welcome to GC Competitions, a new sponsor. A day none of us will forget. This is your chance to win this stunning Newcastle United signed Carabao Cup final winners display with replica medal. For only $1.99 a ticket, you can be the proud owner of this piece of Toon history. The draw will take place on Sunday the 18th of January. Don't miss out. Get your tickets now at www.gccompetitions.co.uk. If you want to support the channel, you can hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. If you like to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sports Social Podcast Network or iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show this week, pre-recorded by my good self. Something a bit different, something for the younger audience, which I was introduced to on Christmas Day by Evie and Aria. K-pop, if anyone's familiar, that's one of the bands, and there's DVD, CD sets as well. To me, when I listen to it, S Club 7, Steps, that sort of thing, there's so many bands, there's an awful lot to it. There's K-pop, Stray Kids, Demon Hunters, an abundance of others. South Korea.
Thank you, Rob. Big thanks to Rob, as always. Talk of the Toon, of course, will be back next week. Looking forward to having Sid and Rob back on live. Stephen Kennedy, thank you for your question. He said, football related, as we're going to be playing Villa twice in a short space of time, if we were to win one and lose one, would you prefer the cup or win in the league? Knowing you, we would like to win both. Obviously you want to win both, but if we could only win one, I'd prefer to win the cup game. My prediction, of course, was Newcastle to win the FA Cup, so that would mean we're through to the 5th round and in with a chance of winning the cup. Not the greatest of draws. Could have been Man City, of course, they were in there. Could have been Macclesfield, they were still in the draw when Newcastle were in as well. So it is what it is. If you're going to win it, you've got to beat them. Non-football related, and I'm sure you've asked us this before, Stephen. You can be in the cast of a movie of your choosing. Which genre would you choose, and who would you like to be in it? Obviously, crime films, gangster films are what I've done over the years. TV series, etc. Those are the kind of parts I've played. I would have to be in with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. That would be the dream scenario for me. Females, I've never really thought about it, but yeah, maybe Demi Moore. I think she still proved that she can still do the business. I've always enjoyed watching her. She's been absolutely fantastic over the years, played some fantastic roles. So those are the names that probably spring to mind for me. John Askew also sent some questions. Are we still in it if tonight ends in a draw? Yes, we are, John. It's half time. And Newcastle will just have to go and do it the hard way at Man City. We're very strong second favourites in the semi with City due to PSR and the fact that it's over 2 legs. If we make Wembley, will it be Eddie's finest hour so far in his time here? That's a great question, by the way. If we beat Man City in the semi-finals and then we beat Arsenal or Chelsea at Wembley, of course it will be. There's no doubt that it will be up there as far as the last season's was concerned. Last season's was great because it was our first for many years. But beating Man City in a semi-final over 2 legs would be fantastic. No, Andrew, I had tickets for tonight and I had to get a refund. So you're asking if I was seeing Jimmy Nail on Friday at the Live Theatre. No, my tickets were for tonight. So I've had to get a refund, unfortunately. As it's cup night, what is the greatest cup game you've seen featuring us? Not last season's final. What is the greatest cup game you've watched not featuring us? It's a good question, that. Greatest cup game for me that I watched as a Newcastle fan is probably going to be the Tranmere game in the Zenith Data Systems Cup. I was at Tranmere. Newcastle and Tranmere drew 6-6. Newcastle lost the game 7-6 on penalties, and there was 3 hat-tricks in the game. And I was at that game at the Tranmere Stadium. So that's probably the greatest one I've seen live. Greatest cup goal I've seen live was Gaza's against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup at St James's Park. What is the greatest cup game you've watched that didn't feature us? Coventry City winning at Wembley. I wasn't at the game, but I watched it on TV, and that was Keith Houchin's winner. That was probably the greatest cup game that I saw without being at it. Have we missed out on points this season by having Harvey Barnes on the bench, says John? And are you surprised at his form at the minute? Is he a great player? Surely he's now one of the first on the team sheet. I would agree that he's one of the first on the team sheet at the moment. I think that he's cemented his place in the team with his goals, if nothing else. Am I surprised at his form? No, because I think there's always been a player in there. I just don't think we've been given the opportunity to see him express himself because there's been other players ahead of him in the team. For example, Gordon and Murphy. But I think that he's stood up and showed his worth, and I think that Eddie would be very naive if that wasn't his first choice, even if it is on the right side of midfield. Have we missed out on him being on the bench? You cannot really say that, You cannot really say that. Eddie's got to be careful with every player, and everyone's got to have a rest at some point, unless you're Malik Chow, of course. But it's a difficult one to say whether that was the case. Are you worried? This is another question from John, that we rely too much on the same people to drag us through the heavy schedule. Is it time for Jacob Ramsey to get the bit between his teeth, and is it too much to ask for a bit more from Joe Willock? I don't believe for 1 minute that Joe Willock isn't trying. I don't believe that at all. I just think, really, from his perspective, that Father Time maybe is catching up with him, and the injuries are catching up with him. I just think he lacks confidence, Joe Willock, in the moment, and the kind of ridiculous abuse that he received a couple of weeks ago won't help that scenario. But I would like to see Willock succeed. I was a big admirer of Willock when he first came to the club, but it's been so disappointing. And you can almost feel the groans when he gets on the ball and gives it away, or misses out on a chance like he had at the Gallagher the other week. And Jacob Ramsey is the jury's just got to be out. Like I said before, the jury's got to be out on him because it's early days, and I think we all felt that he would hit the ground running because he was a Premier League player. I genuinely felt that he would hit the ground running, but he hasn't. So, yeah, disappointing on his score. Anyway, What do I think about the two lads going to Bradford? Good for development. Well, Gary, I don't know a great deal about them. If I'm perfectly honest, I don't think a great deal about them. So them going, it doesn't really mean a great deal to me. Yeah, I think I said Zenith Data Systems Cup game. I said it was the best ever. I said that was the best ever for me. Mark, I'm not sure what you mean. That was the best one for me that I'd seen. That was the question I think that Gary asked. I can't go back up the question. So yeah, the Zenith Data Systems Cup game, the 6-6 against Tranmere was one of the best I've been to. Do you think Trippier will be playing tonight? He'll be on the bench, mate. I can't really see him being in the side tonight. Okay, John, ask you one more question from John. In light of our current injury situation, should we utilise Alex Murphy and Matt Targett? Well, Matt Targett's not our player at the moment. He's on loan to Middlesbrough, so we can't use him. when we've seen Murphy looked okay, why not give him more opportunity? You kind of judge Murphy, John, on the game time that he's had. He's not played enough games to be able to say whether he's good or not. We've got to put our faith and trust in Eddie Howe, really, because Eddie sees him train every day, and he clearly doesn't think that he's capable, at this moment in time of playing in that position on a regular basis. Darren says, thoughts on the FA Cup draw? Out of all the teams, we get Villa away. Even Villa fans aren't happy. Out of the clubs in the Cup, we kind of play someone new. I mean, there's nothing really that we can say about it, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been Man City away. It could have been Liverpool away, Aston Villa away. We've already played them down there, and from my perspective, the cup draw is the cup draw. If you're going to win it, you've got to beat the teams that you're up against. We drew down there 0-0 at the start of the season, and we're more than capable of going to Villa Park and getting a result. So I'm not too disappointed. No worries, Mark. I did say it, mate. Yeah, Zenit Data Systems Cup. Actually, if you're on the Facebook page, the NUFC Matters Facebook page, I actually uploaded that game. I think I uploaded it about 2 weeks ago. The one I've uploaded today is from October 1992, and it is the full match between Newcastle and Sunderland at Roker Park when Liam O'Brien scored the winning goal. So if you're not on the Facebook page, not the group, get yourself onto the page, and you can watch that game back in its entirety. Some great stuff. I put a Borough game on yesterday as well, which has had a lot of traction. So, I'm just loading up the goals that I can load up on there so that you can enjoy them. Some great stuff on there. I've put a few up from the 70s, a few up from the 80s, going into the 90s now, which is great. One more question that I've got, so I'll take this one. Do you cook curries, Steve? If so, what and how? All natural spices? I don't do a great deal of cooking, Roger, if I'm perfectly honest, mate. So, no, I don't, is the answer to that. Why did Howe say we've got problems with PSR when Wilson said if we want to buy in January, we can? I think things can be misinterpreted, Trolls. And Eddie made that point yesterday in his press conference when somebody asked him about the training ground stuff, and he said that, he said he was, that he didn't say he'd been misquoted. He just said it was taken out of proportion, and he wasn't. The headlines didn't reflect what he'd said, and I think things can be taken out of proportion. I think Newcastle can buy in January, but we have always got to be cautious about PSR. That's what Eddie said yesterday. So if we need to buy, we can buy, but we have to be mindful of PSR. That's what he said. So he didn't say we've got problems. He's just reminding people that PSR hasn't gone away and it is still there. That's what he was saying. Do you remember when we beat Swindon 3-1? Gavin Peacock scored the most underrated goal you will ever see. Flicked the ball up twice and lobbed the keeper. Yeah, well, I think we've spoken about that to Gavin when we've done talk-ins with him. Some great goals Gavin scored, and those are the kind of stuff. Those kind of things is what I'm loading up onto the page. I think I put 10 out of 10 up there the other week, which was a club video from back in the 90s when we won 10 out of 10. That was prior to the Sunderland game. Well worth a watch that as well. So if you've got any VHSs and you've not been able to play them, I've got them all converted now, so I'll be able to stick them up there and you can just watch them for your heart's content. But yeah, that's on the NUFC Matters Facebook page, which is great. How long will it take to get rid of the PSR situation? We've got a big problem, Tom. It's not something that you can just get rid of. The rules are going to need to change to help Newcastle out. We're stuck with it, mate. Until the rules are changed to benefit all clubs, Newcastle are stuck with this. And the reason being that we're suffering massively because of the previous owner and the way that he did things. We haven't got a chance to usurp these teams. You would need a sustained period of Newcastle finishing in the top two and Newcastle rivals, i.e. Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United doing a good job on their own, by the way, but all of those clubs not qualifying for Europe. That's what you'd need. It's ridiculous, really. It's a law change that we need, a rule change where everyone's on a level playing field. Everyone can spend whatever they want. And that's when you would see Newcastle being able to compete. I think the club only wanted to buy in the summer, so from what I read, they could bring something forward if the player's available. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Liam O'Brien, there's a forgotten gem of a player. Now he's never forgotten, mate. He walks in Newcastle, he gets a pint bought for him wherever he goes, mate. Any Newcastle fan sees him, they buy him a pint, and that's a great position to be in for Liam these days. If we let one big player leave in the summer, who would it be? I still think that we will get tested on Tonali. I think we'll get tested on Tino, and I think we'll get tested potentially on Bruno. Bruno's had an exceptional season. Gordon's another one. There's your four. Who you look at and think, those are the players who potentially could go. I tell you what I'll say about the summer, though. Be prepared for it. It's World Cup. It's a World Cup. And transfer business will not be done in record time. Be very surprised if there's any early transfers. People will be reluctant to sell anybody until the World Cup's over, especially those players who are playing in the World Cup. Yeah, Les, there is a change, but it's not a change that's going to be beneficial to Newcastle. Converting to squad cost ratio next season isn't beneficial to Newcastle. That doesn't really help us. It's a sideways move. It's not something that suddenly means that Newcastle can go and spend millions and millions of pounds more than anybody else. It doesn't help us at all, Les. And I think that's the problem. And I couldn't give you the full workings and the ins and outs of it. I just know that it's not massively beneficial to us because our problems stem from not having that kind of, ability to be able to spend, and it's based on your commercial revenue. So I just don't see us being able to compete. I really, really don't. It's crazy. Paqueta wants to go back to Brazil. I've not seen that, Tom. Yeah, somebody mentioned that last night about Paqueta refusing to play. I find that bizarre and strange. Just as bizarre as Michael Carrick becoming interim head coach at Man United. I find that a strange move for Man United. But I don't think people realise that Man United have just got nothing. They are literally treading water. Man United, they're $1 billion. Is it $1 billion? Nearly $1 billion in debt. They've got the Glazers. They've never got rid of the Glazers. And, everything that I've said about them is true, that they've just got huge problems, Man United. And that's how they can't go and, appoint another big name manager. Michael Carrick is not a big name manager, interim head coach, whatever you want to call him. And nothing they bring in will be for our benefit. Correct, Les. Where do you think Wilson will go with him leaving West Ham? I don't know. Some people saying, he could come here. He could come to Newcastle and on a 6-month deal. I just think he'd see that as a backward step. I don't think he would want to come back. Why go back to Newcastle when you're not going to be playing? He wants to play. Wilson won't play at Newcastle. Voldemort will. Wissa will. Wilson won't play, and Eddie won't play 2 up front. So Wilson won't come back to Newcastle. I can understand why people say it could happen, but I just don't see it. Another change of words favouring the greedy 6. You're right, Roger. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Thank you, and answer, Steve. Thank you, mate. How did Melly react to the sacking of Amarim? He was a big fan of him and thought he was the right man for the job. I just told him, I just said, I told you so, Melly. And, what can he say? He's still defending Ratcliffe, away from social media and that. We messaged on a, interim basis and he's still defending Ratcliffe. He can't see it. He genuinely doesn't understand. And I mean, I called him out on his own show. I said, I won't be there. And he won't last. It's just it's an absolute nightmare for Man U fans, but obviously other fans, we just we smile, don't we, because of their arrogance in that 20-year reign. They're reaping what they sowed. All right. People say Eddie's taking Newcastle as far as he can. Is there an argument to say it's the other way around? I think Eddie's done a great job, and I think he can continue to do a great job at Newcastle. It's not the best comparison, but Alan Pardew was the right man for Newcastle under Mike Ashley. And I didn't campaign to have him removed from the job because I still felt that he could do a job for us. And I still felt that Newcastle would be okay under Alan Pardew. I didn't particularly agree with his appointment, but because he had a good working relationship with Mike and Derek, I thought it was, a marriage made in heaven. But Eddie's the same, isn't he? Eddie's Eddie's perfect at this moment in time for Newcastle. But the natives are getting restless. We have a new breed of supporter. We have a knee-jerk reaction every time something happens. We big up players. We watch a player for 10 games and we call him world class. And things are just completely out of, they're off the scale these days. It's a very weird way to go on. A legend is somebody who is maybe been at the club 7 or 8 years and has scored many goals or created many assists or pulled off multiple saves, and that's what a legend is. Someone who's given you great service over the course of decades, a decade of at the club. We call people a legend after they played 10 games. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Eddie's a legend at the club now because of what he's done, and the players who won the Carabao Cup should all get that mantle as well, because they won it. But I don't think Eddie's taken the club as far as he can. I think with Newcastle United, there needs to be decisions made behind the scenes, and Eddie needs to be supported and backed. And maybe there is time to just say, you know what, forget the rules. We're going to go and do what we want to do. That's it. It's as simple as that. Anyway, we have come to the end. Thank you. Enjoyed that, Steve. Thanks for the chat. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We are back tomorrow night, 6:00. Ask George tomorrow. So if you've got any questions and you want to email them over, and I'll ask George tomorrow night. Enjoy the game tonight. How are the lads?